Here we are once again on Coursera Data Science Specialization. You are now on course number 5, and if you're taking the course number 5, which is Reproducible Research, and you're on the Project 1 Week 2 assignment, you have probably encountered, like most people encountered in this particular assignment with regard to a file that needs to be submitted to the repository. The assignment goes that we need to gather a data from personal activity monitoring device such as like Fuel Band or Jawbone Up or Fitbit that tracks people's steps and activities like running, sitting, or walking. So we need to answer several questions throughout the report. We need to answer several questions and then create a plot about it. So here are the requirements. We need to create a PA1 underscore template.rmd, which is basically a markdown RStudio, and then upon saving that or knitting that through an HTML function of the console of RStudio, it will create a file that has a file extension of .html, which is this, .html, and RMD file, which is the R markdown. Prior to that being created into an HTML extension file, it needs to be created first into a .md file, and that's where most people encounter a problem. If you would go to the forum, you would see questions from people like saying they don't get .md file being created automatically upon running the init-r function of RStudio R markdown. So until I come across this particular answer from one of the forums here, I couldn't find the answer anymore. But first, we need to run a code in the console. This is the following code that needs to be run. This is the it's no longer in here. It's in the console. These are the result of running such codes. This is the code init-r, the template.rmd, which is basically the name of the file that we're trying to create, and then it's going to convert that RMD file into that of a .md file. First, let me show you how it looks like from R markdown. So this is what it is. So let me use the screen first. Come on, it doesn't work. There we go. So as you can see, this is not your typical programming environment. It basically is a text editor that has a feature. This is not what it is. Actually, you need to open it in here. This is basically a text editor wherein you could type in text. You have functions where you could put in text that's not going to be readable as code. As you can see, they are just like the captions. And here is where you insert the codes. And of course, when you run the code, it will give you the results down the bottom. This particular line of code here is supposed to download the data that we're going to be reading, which is the data coming from a Samsung, I think, some sort of a activity monitoring device like Fitbit or whatnot. And then it will store that in your working directory. And then from there, it's going to base the plots from to answer several questions that we have in our assignment. The question goes like the following. These are the questions that needs to be answered. You need to answer what is the mean total number of steps taken per day, the average daily activity pattern. Those are the specifications for your codings. Of course, in the data that will be uploaded, there are values there that are NA values or they're empty values. And you have to create a code that would not count those values for the total, and then give us the exact result to be plotted. There, so that's important at this point, but what I was talking about is this particular R markdown environment is supposed to be able to capture both the text and the code, and as well as the result of the code. If you are going to convert that into an HTML file, it's doing it right now. So basically, this is just like a way of creating your own website wherein you can have a result published a particular subject matter that you're trying to evaluate the data from. So this is what should be coming up. These are the codes that I included in my R markdown, or the environment for creating such result or such page. And of course, the code, once it's been read by the R markdown system upon creating the page of the output, of course, it needs to have the output showing like these total number of steps taken per day, the mean total of that is in here, and then you're gonna have to put in a plot, stuff like that. So now we're good with that part. When you save it, it's supposed to create that particular file, which is the HTML file. And initially, it will create this RMD file, of course. But the problem was, when you commit it, when you run it that way, just like the regular how you would run it, it will just create the HTML and the RMD file. And I was stuck earlier for like, I think, the whole day trying to figure out how it was going to generate an .md file. So what I did is I just manually created it, and then I went ahead and committed it. So we committed from here, you submit it from this part of the thing here. Whatever project you're doing, it will be updated to this panel. And once it's in there, you're gonna have to click commit, and then some other windows popped up. You probably know about that. But then if you would go to your repository this is how it looks like from my end. So earlier, as you can see, you got 20 commits here. So I tried several times submitting it because earlier, on my first submission, which is actually 2 days ago, I just found out that I got a failed mark because what comes up was an empty MD file. I tried to create the MD file. Here's how it looks. It just have the text that I included in there, codes and whatnot. Suppose the codes should be showing the plotting, just like what we have here earlier. When we run this, let's record again. Let's go for a few minutes here. Then this is how it should look like from that page. So if you can see, it has all the text, the codes, and the images of the plots. But compared to what I had in here earlier, there was none. So I got stuck for at least a day trying to figure it out, and then I went ahead and tried to browse in the forum for answers. I even put some comments in there. See, those are the comments that I was having trouble earlier. And then I tried to update it. First, I thought the code that needs to be run was just like this. Oh, let's run the code again. Anyway, the first code that I did was something like this line. There. I forgot to include the part of the argument where it should be creating an MD file. So what I should be doing then was this, but instead I deleted this one right here because I thought that's just what it is. Because that's what I got from the forum, the first one that I've looked up, and that was the first suggestion. So I ran that, and then went ahead and continued with the second part of that code, which is this code right here, where an MD file will be created as an HTML file. Well, that should have worked, but when I go there, when I went ahead and committed it again, now the MD file has some of the result. As you can see, it has results here. It computes the result. However, the plots, see, that's the result of this code to answer this question right here. However, on parts of the question codes where it's supposed to show plots for us, those plots are missing. So I try to rerun it again, thinking that it's probably missing on something, and I figure out that it's really missing something because this code right here is the init function needs to be paired up with an MD file. So it's going to create the .rmd file and convert that MD file, RMD file into an MD file, and then after the MD file will be converted from HTML file. So you can have 3 files available in here, which is the RMD, MD, and HTML. Then you can submit it. So I tried submitting it earlier. However, what comes up is I'm still lacking those plots, just like what's being shown here. It needs to have those plots. And then I tried reading some more from the forums. One of the guys there says that here, when you commit, make sure that the template files, along with MD files and RMD files, a folder called a figure something will also be committed or submitted. So I figured out where would that be. So there's a folder in here separately that has all the images of the plots. Tried opening it up, and there it is. Those are the plots. So it's not even mentioned in the instructions in the exam. But we need to include a separate files coming from a separate folder, whereas all of the plot images are stored. It only mentions of the .rmd, and then it says here that we need to, aside from the .rmd file, we also need to submit a .md and the .html files. There was no mention whatsoever that an image file needs to come along with those, because apparently these codes that we have in here, when we submit it to the repository, it's not going to create the image of the plot for us, because basically this is just a repository. It has no functionality whatsoever to create an image. So what happened was, when it comes to images that should have been the part of the program where the images should have been shown up, it only has this broken link right here. It doesn't know where to grab those images from. So when I open it up, this is what comes up. It's just an empty page, no image related to the plot that we are making. Going back in here, if you would open the RMD file, it is indicating on some of the lines where those plots are supposed to come up that it's going to pull up a .png file, which is basically an image file. So I was trying to figure out where was that being pulled up from, and until I read that particular response in the forum that particular file needs to be submitted right off, then the repository would know where to pull up those images from. And when I did that, I submitted that, and this went out. Let's go back to here. This is my recent submission, and it has now the MD file updated along with the image. But let me show you where's that document. Here's the attached file, where the attached document where the file is supposed to come out, the image files. And then when you open this, it's going to grab those images and pair them up in their appropriate programs. So there it is. It's now showing up with the plus here. So pretty much that's it. If you are having trouble, if you're one of the guys taking the Coursera data science specialization, and you're on the 5th course. It's just reproducible research activity or week assignment, week 2 assignment. You probably encountered that. That's just the question first. You need to, instead of just relying on the actual button to knit the RMD file here, that's just basically going to generate the HTML file and the HTML output, but not the RMD file. Instead of that, you're going to have to run. I included that in my R Markdown document here. Then we need to run those codes. I actually have not updated it. It's supposed to include that other pairing that has .md extension in it, and then this one, and that will create the MD file, RMD file, and HTML file. And then once you are submitting it, make sure that you have all the documents required added in here, like this figure document. You need to have to make sure that it show up in here, in there as well. So let's just try updating this and see what's going to happen here. Let's just make some changes. Oh, where am I typing it? B81 underscore MD. Oh, jump. Save it. Come back here. There. And then run this. As you can see, it says this has created an MD file. And if you're going to look up in here, the .md and RMD file has been updated at the same time. And then we have yet to create an HTML file update for it. I created this earlier already, that's why we already have those listed in there for the HTML.md and the RMD. This time, we also have the HTML updated. See, their time here matches from what we just recently did. So now that we have them updated, it will gonna be showing up here. We have all those three here. I'm wondering where's the documents coming from. So I'm not gonna update it for now. I'm not gonna commit it. Basically, that's how you do it. So you have to make sure they've been checked up. I don't know where's the other document or folder is gonna show up, but there's supposed to be another folder in here called the figure folder showing up in here before we click the commit. This is what comes up when we commit. See like that, and then you put something in here, you click commit, and then you push it, and it will be updated to your repository in GitHub. Just to verify that I still have the most recent one, because it probably created some changes. Alright, you still have the most recent one. And we'll be able to find out if we got the most recent update through going in the commit link. The time is still 2 hours ago, so we have not made any update right now by mistake. So there it is. I hope that helps for people who are taking this course. Of course, there is data science specialization, course number 5, called Reproducible Research.